Alright, welcome to my VRChat Avatar 3 update tutorial. We'll be teaching you today about the basics of utilizing Avatar 3, how to create menus, how to create layers, parameters. We're going to go nuts with this. We'll be showing you quite a few features and making sure that by the time that this tutorial is ended, you will have a fully functional, completely customized Avatar 3 avatar. It must be noted that at any point you need to have anything repeated, you can simply pause the video, go back, slow it down, or even speed it up if you need to. Right here in my notes section, I have several sources that we will be utilizing in this tutorial, but we will also be linking some tutorials to other people who might be able to give you a little bit more information that we may have missed in this tutorial. That way you'll be able to cover all your bases and know exactly what you need to be doing. So to start, we need to go to our VRChat. We're going to go to our download, and we're going to download the SDK3 avatars. I've already done it and imported it into a project already, so I'm not going to be doing the same thing. In here, I will link this. I highly recommend Lyuma's Avatar 3 emulator, for the reason being that I don't need to go into the game to test about whether or not my animations, floats, or integers are even functioning at all, as I can just test it while inside the Unity editor. Also in this tutorial, we'll be utilizing the muscle animation editor to create a quick AFK animation. This isn't necessary and you can completely skip that part. I will be time linking this in the description. That way you can choose to skip it entirely, but in the case that you want to know how to use the AFK system, you can have your own custom animation made from scratch by you, or you can even just get some prefabs that are available in VRC mods. You'll also notice my Unity will look a little bit different. I'm using Sergei Smirov's Q hierarchy. This here allows me to quickly edit my stuff without needing to rely on having two separate hierarchy windows to hop in between. So I've went ahead and imported everything into my project. And I have a little tutorial model here we'll be utilizing throughout this. It's a little fella from Gunfire Reborn that I ripped. But we're going to start by creating a new folder. We're going to name it Avi3. And for your benefit, I'm going to turn on my input overlay, so you'll be able to see my keystrokes. So in the Avatar 3, we're going to create a VRChat avatar expression menu, and name it menu. We're going to create VRChat avatar's expression parameters, name it params. I will be utilizing a submenu in this, so I'm going to go ahead and create another menu and name it toggles. I will also have us make a create animator controller and name it FX. All four of these are going to be utilized immediately, but first we need to go to our cat. I'm going to remove this real quick and create a new avatar descriptor. From here, we're going to change our viewport. We're going to click the edit on our view position and drag this little ball about where we want it. I'd say about right here, somewhere in the eyeballs. We're going to go to lip sync, set it to be a Visine blend shape. We're going to drag the body mesh into there, and if you've done it right, your little Visine should automatically show up. I'm going to enable eye look. I heavily recommend somewhere along this side. But what's important to note is that your eye movements are now pre-calculated and you can specify them. If you choose to be calm, the eyes won't look around as much. And the opposite with excited. If you choose to be shy, they won't look at people as much, versus the opposite with confident. We're now going to go to our armature. We're going to drag the left eye in and the right eye in. Change our perspective, and we're going to set the parameters for how these eyes are going to rotate. So for our looking down, it's not it. There we go. Looking down, it'll be 25. Looking up is -25. Nope, that's too much, so we'll make it 15. Yep. Looking left, -15 and 15. You've just set up your entire eye system. We're going to now be adding blend shapes for our eye blinking system. We're going to be setting it to a preset blink that we've specified. And personally, we do not like the looking up and looking down lower lid system, so we always wind up making an empty blink blend shape that has nothing assigned in it. That way we can avoid having that as an issue. Next, we'll be adding the playable layers, wherein we're going to turn on the default non-transform for FX. We're also going to turn on default action. We're going to click this little circle here that will show us these. So I'm going to click the VRC v3 action layer. It's the one that's already default in here. I'm going to navigate to it and clone it into my Avatar 3 folder. I'm going to create a gesture. I'm going to select the VRC Avatar v3 hands layer. I'm going to click that and clone it as well. We do not want to modify these in case we mess up. We can always go back. So we're going to name this one hands. We're going to name this, actually, action. And name this one gestures. Okay, so in our little cat here, we're going to scroll down. We're going to set our gestures to gestures and action to action. We're going to be creating an expression system. We're going to drag the menu and the parameters in. We've set up our entire model. This is everything we're going to be covering today. In the parameter section, they've already included some default values. You can feel free to completely remove them. Make sure they're all set to integer in case you add specific things. So throughout this, we're going to be adding a few faces, a few gestures, toggling some knives, showing an eyes closed and a material change slider, and also having an AFK animation that we're going to preset. To start with this, we're just going to build our parameters. So here we're going to type in knife toggle. We're going to type in eyes closed, material change. We're going to also set faces 1 and faces 2. We're going to make it eyes closed float, and that should be good. We're going to set the faces 2 and eyes closed float as float parameters, and make sure that we'll have a material change float. Set that to be float, and we're pretty much ready to go. Okay, so we're going to go to our FX layer, we're going to go to our parameters, and we're going to copy all this over. We have an integer of knife toggle, an integer of eyes closed, an integer of material change, and a float of faces 1, and a float of faces 2, okay. We're also going to go out of our way, do this a little bit ahead of time. We're going to create a gesture left weight, a gesture right weight as floats. We're going to create an integer of gesture left and another integer of gesture right. We will be coming back to these later. We will not be needing them right now. So in our layers state, we're going to be building the layers that are going to be utilized by these parameters. We're going to start with the knives. We're going to next do the eyes closed, the material change, and expressions. Doesn't matter about how you name these, as this is more for organization than actually being specific, as the parameters, which are punctual, like you have to make sure that if you have any capitals that they are copied over to the parameters. This is actually important. Whenever you make a new layer, it is vital that you set the gear here to be a value of 1. If you do not, your avatar is going to break, or any layers that you've specified aren't going to work at all. It's very important that you do not forget to set the weight of 1 on any layers you make, no matter what they are. We're also going to do a left hand and a right hand to cover our bases for later. Set a value of 1 again, do not forget it. And we're going to create a new folder for anims. In here, we're going to specify what animations are going to be set in the parameters and be used in the layers. So first I'm going to duplicate my cat, make him invisible for the original, and we're going to have an animation version that we're going to be modifying here. I'm going to create a new animation clip, and this one will be red knife. Okay, I'm going to click the record button, which has a lot more new features now. I'm glad they actually expanded what you can do with it. I'm going to go to my body, and I'm going to set to be a blend shape of Glimmer 2 set to 1. Copy the first keyframe, move it over, and stop recording. I'm going to delete this animation controller and create another animation for green knife. We're going to record, go to the body, and blend shape for prism all the way up. Now, you can do this with anything. You can toggle objects. For the sake of the tutorial, we're going to create a gotta make sure that's visible. Alright, that's just going to be placed out in our armature. We're going to copy that component. Well, just paste it in there. Okay. What we're going to do is, even though I only wanted the red and green knife, I'm going to be adding in another animation to turn on the cube. So we're going to create another animation, cube. We're going to record, make it visible, and we have set that up. Next we'll be doing faces, so we're going to want to make a mad, sad, a smile, a eyes closed state, and finally a neutral state. We're going to click to record. We're going to go to the body. Anything we've specified in here in the previous animations that are face related, we're going to set them to a value of 0. Copy that over and paste it. So what next we're going to do, we're going to create the material change slider. Essentially, we're going to have him do a hue shift. So starting here, we're going to go to his body. This is a new feature. I'm glad they added it in. You're able to do a lot more in the recording than what you could before. We're going to set our hue shift to a value of 0. Then on the next keyframe, we're going to set the hue shift to a value of 1. We're going to stop recording. We're going to delete that. We're going to delete the duplicate cat. And we're going to make the original visible. We're going to select the cube, put it invisible because we don't want it to be seen yet. And we're going to build our layers. So in our FX, we're going to go to our knives. We're going to navigate to our animations. And for here, we're going to set an empty state. Pardon. This empty state is going to be utilized to tell the game not to do anything as our initial state. We're going to add a red knife and a green knife animation and set transitions from both sets back to the new state. Because in our toggle, we do not want both knives to show up at once or to be able to overlay each other. We want them to toggle in between the two. We will be setting that up to do so. So in our new state for our first transition, we're going to set the condition of knife toggle equals 1. We're going to go to the second transition here. We're going to set it knife toggle not equal 1. That way, when pressing the toggle menu, when we choose the selected parameter, it will, when it's set to 1, go to red knife, and when it's not set to 1, it will go back to the empty state. We're going to create a second transition. We're going to set an equal to a value of 2, as we're going to want a second parameter option to read from, and a value of not equals 2. You've just set up the toggles for your knives. You can do this with any objects, it doesn't matter. For eyes closed, this is where things are going to get a little bit more tricky. We're going to create an empty state. We're going to drag our eyes closed in, and we're going to set the normalized time as a parameter of eyes closed float. Okay? We're going to set the transition between the two, and set the transition condition to be eyes closed. What is it? Right there, equals 1, and eyes closed not equals 1. We're going to do the same thing with the material change, being that we're going to create an empty state, drag the material change, make a transition between the two, set the material change to a normalized time of material change float, set the transition conditions to be material change equals 1, and a transition material change not equals 1. For our expressions, this is our little menu that will allow us to switch our faces. We're going to create an empty state. No, I'm wrong. I'm going to create a new blend tree. From this blend tree, we'll double click into it, and we'll find that we have this new little menu. In here, we need to click the blend tree, set the blend type to a 2D simple or freeform directional. If you want a lot more customization and proper blending, especially with a lot of gestures being a maximum of 17, I heavily recommend the freeform, but in our case we're going to do a simple. The parameters are set to be faces 1 and faces 1, which we've made in the parameters, as you can see here, but we need to make sure the second one is set to be faces 2. We're going to be adding in several motions, a minimum of 5, being that we need to drag all of these separate faces into here so we can modify them. So we're going to set smile as our first one, mad as our next one, sad, eyes closed, and neutral. This will pre-build our little menu here, and all we have to do is specify what section of our touchpad or joystick we will be utilizing to activate each animation. In this case, I want smile to be on the top, so we're going to set it to be a positive 3. We want our mad to be on the right, so a positive 3. Sad on our left, negative 3. And then eye closed on the bottom being a negative 3. Okay, our neutral state will need to be in the middle, and we have our entire menu already built. They will properly blend between each other on this location, between these two, but if you set it to freeform, it's a little bit more of a curvature, and again, it blends a little bit better. It just depends on your preference and what you want to do with it. We have now created a knife toggle system, an eyes closed radial menu, and a material change radial menu, along with an expressions menu. From here, we're going to navigate to our Avatar 3, go to the menu, and we're going to add several items, being that we want a toggles, set that as a submenu, drag the toggles menu into there that we created, we're going to leave that be. We're going to set expressions type as a 2-axis puppet. This is going to be utilized with this blend tree right here to make your faces. We're going to set the parameter horizontal to be faces 1 and vertical to be faces 2. We're going to set our label up to be the smile, the right to be mad, down to be eyes closed, and left to be sad. We're also going to create another submenu system where it will be variables. Create another submenu. And drag that into there. So in our toggles, this is where we want our knives and cube to turn on. So we're going to create a red knife, set it to be a toggle, and a knife parameter of 1. As in our knives, we've set the transition to be a value of 1. Go back to our toggles, we're going to create another one, green knife, set the time to once again be toggle, knife, and a parameter value of 2, being that our green knife here has a transition value of 2. That way it will toggle in between these two items. We did not set the parameters for the cube, which we will fix. Again, make sure you don't mess up on it. And in here, we're going to create a new layer for a cube, set the weight to 1, create an empty state, go to our animations, drag it in, and make a transition between the two with a parameter of cube equals 1 and a parameter of cube not equals 1. Now if you want, you can modify this however you wish. It doesn't really matter what variable you set it as. It can be a nigh infinite number. I recommend 1, but for this instance, so we can show you it doesn't have to be 1 all the time, we're going to set it to be a value of 5. We're going to go to our Avatar 3, go to the toggles. We're going to add the cube toggle, parameter of cube, and set it to a value of 5. This is how you link your items in the layers. You can have multiple different items in a single layer, just depending on how you set up your variables right here. We're going to go to our variables here, and we're going to create 2 little radial menus for both our eyes closed and our material change. So we're going to go here. We're going to set it to be a radial puppet with a parameter value of eyes closed and a rotation of eyes closed float. We're going to do the same thing here. Material change, radial puppet, parameter material change, and a parameter rotation material change. Make sure that's an integer. That's my fault. Yep. Already, it's done. It will transition between the two items in the radial menu. And we have created our entire menu system, being that we have a toggles menu that has our knives and a cube. We have our expressions menu, which has our multiple faces built into the avatar. And we have a variables menu that has the eyes closed and material change radial puppets. From here, we can actually modify our little menus by going to the icon here. Toggles, I'm going to make it to be a folder. Expressions, I'm going to make it to be hand rock. Now, let's make it a person waving. We're going to set our smile to be smile, mad to be mad, eyes closed, just going to make it meh, and sad of gasp. You can modify these, you can make them however you want. It's important to understand that when you are making these, any PNG textures you bring in have to be set to be a sprite 2D in order for it to work. So we're going to go back to our menu, set our variables. Once again, we're going to make it a folder. This makes it easier for us to navigate. Go to our toggles. We're going to set the knives to be 2 swords, and our cube to be, we're just going to make it a little magic one. Why not? We're going to go to our variables, set our eyes closed icon to be a radial, and the other one to also be a radial. We've set up our entire menu in order to just modify these toggles, do our faces, and change the material as well as slide our eyes closed. But what about the default VRChat gesture system for Avatar 2, wherein you can utilize for desktop your keyboard with the F1 keys, or your controllers with the touchpad or fingers respectively for the index and 5? Well, they don't have it built in. We kind of set up the base layer for that in the FX by making the left hand the right hand, and the parameters for the gesture left, right, left, right. In our parameters, we'll still have them empty, but we copied the gestures layer from earlier in VRChat, and they've been kind enough to already provide this. You can just copy it. But first, you would want to replace any of these with any animations you've specified. When you look into it, you'll notice it has finger rotations, and you can add or record properties into these animations. You don't even have to replace them. You can add to them and it'll read them in here. But in our case, we're going to pretend like we added in a whole bunch of animations. You can find easy guides about how to do that. There's no worry. I'm going to copy all of it. I'm going to go into my Avatar 3, go to my FX layer, and paste that into the left hand. I'm going to make sure that my idle is set as the default layer state. This is important to do because even though you've told the gestures to be right here and used what VRChat has provided, the one issue is that it still has to be carried over to the FX layer, no matter what. So in our right hand, we're going to copy all this too, and paste it as well, making sure that my idle is set to be the default layer state. Now, I missed something. Make sure on your left and right hand in your FX layer that you set the mask to be, for each respective hand, the left mask and the right hand mask. This is important to do as your hands will not animate properly. From here, we've already specified everything. We're good to go. But let's say, for instance, we weren't happy with the default AFK, where you do that little meditation thing. So we're going to go to our animations. We're going to duplicate our cat, visibility, animation, create, AFK. We're going to click record, go to our scene, and this is where the muscle animation editor that I linked earlier is going to come in. Because you can quickly and easily modify your entire skeletal structure just by utilizing sliders, which is really nice. You're going to position up on the Y to where he's a little bit up in the air. This is where the ground is. And we're just going to give him a full body AFK look. So we're going to crunch him this way, spread him out a little bit. There we go. He's got this little broken body look to him. I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to copy that over. And delete. Set visibility. And we're going to navigate to our action layer. This is where the AFK is hidden, as well as your sitting animation and your standing type animation. You can even set the different types of emojis that are preset in the avatar. You can completely go nuts from it. Add whatever you want, change it however you like. In our AFK, we're going to navigate to our animations and drag the AFK in for all three of these states. You can set to have a different animation state, as long as this is not set to be loop in most cases in regards to material changes utilizing sliders. You can have this in all of them. However, if it does have a slider for a material, you must make sure the loop time is set to off in order for these three to properly switch between. From here, we can assume that we did everything correctly, and here is where the avatar emulator comes through. Before we even need to launch the game, we're able to test our avatar to a degree to make sure that it properly works. I'm going to go into play mode. I'm going to go to the scene, and it's already put a default pose on our cat, and we can completely modify how we want him to act. So we can set our gesture left to be hand open. Can't really tell. This is his hand open, finger point, rock and roll. It's all in here. It's been modified, but it is clearly working. If we had any facial blend shapes applied to the model, it would be showing on his face, but we don't. If I turn on AFK mode, he'll go into the AFK that was specified earlier. This will happen every time you hit the end key on your keyboard for desktop, or remove your headset, or go into the Oculus or Steam dashboard whilst in VR. We can also go here into our integers. We have the eyes closed, we have the knife toggle, we have everything set to be in here. Our only concerns are being knife toggle. Whenever I set a value of 1, I will expect to see my red knife, yep, and 2, my green knife. Looks like it works, so we'll set the cube to be 1, and somewhere in here it ought to be hidden away. It didn't properly activate, but for the most part we know for a fact it would be working if we had the animation properly set, as it's the exact same system as the knife toggle. So we're going to ignore that this is really having a problem there. We're going to set the cube back to 0 so we don't have to worry about it. And this is where we can test our faces and our eyes closed and material change. Material change should have been changing his colors, and so would have the eyes closed, so we've missed something. Let's go ahead and check and see what it is. Everything's looking good, seems to be fine. Our values are set to 1. Our normalized time is set to be a parameter of eyes closed float. And it has a new state of eyes closed equals 1. So it should be working fine. Same with our materials. Unless something's not right. Let's check here. Animation. It's properly set. It may not be working as we have them on the first keyframe. So we're going to expand it outward to say 0.10. And again to 0.10. We're going to go back into play mode. For our cat, it's not changing. Our faces are, so something's working right there. As I'm unsure exactly what's happening here, we're going to go ahead and use the new feature to upload to our account. I'm going to click autofix for anything that has an issue. We can ignore that. We're going to be utilizing the new system for the build and test for your avatars, which allows you to locally test your avatar without needing to fully upload it to your account. It must be noted that whenever you do the build and test system, that no one can see your build and test avatar except for you. They will just see an error robot. So it's important to note that you can only let other people see your stuff if you've clicked the build and publish. Our test avatar is built, and we'll be going into VRChat to test it. We'll click it in the other, and we've already got our cat. He has eyes moving, blinking. He has functional visings, and we shall be testing his gestures. Can't really see it, but his hand is changing. We'll go to the expressions. This is where the stuff we've built lays in wait. We're going to turn on the cube. There it is. Turn on the green knife. My mirror broke. We're going to turn on the red knife. Works perfectly fine. And if you notice, if I turn on the green knife and try and go to my red knife, it will turn off the green knife, but it will not turn off the cube. In our expressions, we'll have this little radio menu, and our face is blending properly. In our variables, we're going to set our material change, and he's changing his hue. You can now properly change the color of your avatar at will, however you wish. We're going to leave him be green, not let it stick at all. And our eyes closed is not functioning because we have an expression tied to it. But if we go back to it before we've done an expression, for the most part, with Avatar 3, this is a little word of warning, being that the eyes closed isn't functioning properly. When you've utilized a blend shape in an expressions menu, the expressions menu overrides any blend shape that is in the avatar. So even if it's not being used at the current moment by the expressions menu, your radial menu for this eye closed isn't working because your expressions menu for your eyes closed is already taken up. But there you go. I hope you enjoyed. This is how you make your Avatar 3 avatar. And thank you for watching. Hopefully you learned something.
'Cause anywhere you go, you know I would follow. 'Cause I'm curious about you.